We're
Hey,
coming. Hi.
There we are.
they are.
How
Hello,
are
David.
you?
Hello, Vanessa. I'm well. How are you guys?
Good. Nice to meet you.
Hello. We can only assume you are Todd,
I am
unless your
Todd.
full
Yeah.
unless your full first name is Toddcast.
Wouldn't that be crazy? Maybe I'm in name my third kid, the Toddcast.
That's a weird name for a kid, though. I don't like that at all.
Pretty weird name, yeah. Well, let's get right to it. I've been listening to the Against All Odds album. You guys have got to be happy with how that turned out, hey?
We are happy.
Very much so. Yeah.
I'm happier now that you said it like that, though, as though it was like impossible not to be happy about it. I feel even better about it.
Like straight up, like there's for me, and I don't know if you know my background. I did 20 years of radio. I did 12 years afternoon show at CFOX here in Vancouver.
So cool.
And when I hear an album like that, like there's at least four straight up no-brainer radio songs.
Toddcast, get back in the booth then. Get back to CFOX.
Well, that's the problem, is the podcast is going so well that I'm not getting back into radio because of that.
Well, that's
Well,
good.
that's
A good thing then.
Yeah,
a
couple of years into doing the podcast, I got asked to be one of the instructors at the radio course here at BCIT as well. So I'm kind of, I guess, still, in the industry. But yeah, like, for me, it's like One Pill is a great song. Friends Like You, Better Off, I think, is the other one.
Yeah.
And Belong. Like One Pill, that's a like straight up, that is a no-brainer. If Canadian radio knew anything about anything, that would be all over across the nation.
Here it is. I mean, we released that song in January and did our own radio tracking, and I guess it turns out the Canadian radio does not know anything about anything.
Well, it's hard though, right? Like talk about how hard that is too, like to get
you want me to yes,
play on radio. It's super hard, isn't it?
It's literally insane. It is the most insane thing. But also, I think it's really interesting because most people have no idea. Like, people are like, what are you talking about? Like, why would it be hard? And I'm like, oh, but I feel like you should. I want to hear from your perspective why it's hard. Because, I mean, you were in it, but it is so crazy. But like,
well, I know why it's hard.
Tell us why. Tell us why from your perspective.
There's multiple reasons. Like, the first reason is that unfortunately the big companies like Chorus and Bell and all those companies, they all have like shareholders, and they need to like make sure that they're getting the money to their shareholders and blah blah blah, and therefore they have like from the high up, they have from vice president, the presidents, they're all doing like radio tests, and like if you're not on the top 20, they won't even give you a sniff in the music meetings, coupled with the fact if you're not cross Canada touring, so you're not going to like Red Deer and Winnipeg and all these other places, they think like, well, why would we add you if you're not going to be here to support this single? Like, why would we add you? So you're really at a tough uphill battle. Like I applaud you for doing what you're doing, and it blows my mind that bands continue to do it.
Well, it's so crazy because I even like, I've been doing our tracking for like 6 years. And even when I started 6 years ago and we had worse music, like our production was not that good, the songs were like, okay, I got a much higher response, right? And it's so sad to see now because you literally hear music directors saying, I it's a no-brainer for me, I'd play it, but I'm literally not allowed to even select the music here. It comes from head office. Or like, we need to see you on 5 charts, and those charts are determined only by Chorus Entertainment, and there's one person who, like, it's so crazy.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, because you think of like a song like Belong, like here's like it chugs along, fitting in, feeling out of place, and here's something that like, the majority of people that would hear that song would probably be able to relate to it and get to it. You know what I mean? Like, it truly, from being, I've done radio and podcasting now for almost 3 decades, and it blows my mind that we're at that point, especially, it seems like it's almost getting worse.
It's way, oh my God, it's way worse. I think it's like, But like, I feel like it's like one of those things, like it's like climate change. Like it's only going to get worse. Like I'm sorry, like unless there's drastic changes that no one's willing to make, like there's no way it's getting better until the planet is obliterated and we move to Mars, and like radio is obliterated and we only stream. Same thing. Same thing.
Extraterrestrial radio. That's what it's.
So does that put like, knowing that, you guys seem to, it feels to me like you guys get the industry, you understand it. Does that put extra pressure then on, like, we need to tour, then we need to get out there, we need to get to radio stations, we need to meet these people, like
everything to do with every aspect of all sides of our band puts pressure on every other side of every other aspect. Yeah. I don't know, does that answer your question?
Do you know what else is getting worse, actually? Wait, I don't want this to be a negative podcast, though.
Yeah. No, it's not. It's not at all. Like, we need hold up. Okay. The main takeaway is your music is awesome.
Thank you.
So you're at that.
She meant we didn't want to be negative.
We don't want to be negative, not you. But I just don't want to be like the cynical person being like, oh, the music industry, kids these days. Like, no.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is true. No, so we primarily what we love most doing is touring. So we toured a ton this summer, but there's like so many factors around that too, because it is kind of tough. Like the whole operation is the two of us, so we do want down the road to have a booking agent and a manager and other people to help us with a lot of this stuff. So it is a lot for just two people to do, and so Vanessa is our booking agent in addition to our radio tracker, and so like she was able to put together an awesome touring schedule for us over the summer. Like we got all these awesome festivals, and so we do have a bunch of shows booked in the fall for after the album comes out, but there's just a lot of realities, I mean, made worse, even more so coming out of COVID, just costs and schedules and logistics. Like touring out, we last did tour across the country in 2019, and we were able to like rent a van and afford the gas, and that's very different to do right now. So it then becomes kind of chicken and egg situation, because we 100% would go out to Red Deer and Winnipeg, and
I would literally go anywhere.
Yeah, but like we kind of need to build more of a presence in some of those places, so we could use some radio support. And then if they added our song to rotation and we got a bunch of fans out, then it would make sense for us to invest in going all the way out there. But it's hard to get. And like we understand the realities. Like
maybe we need an angel investor.
That would be helpful.
Does anyone who listens to your show, are you an angel? An angel investor? Should we go on Dragon's Den or something?
I mean, we don't have time for that.
Not a bad idea. Did you have to fight like for creativity over the pandemic? Like, I know that you released, you're about to release the album, but like, did you have to fight to get it?
In what sense? Like fight ourselves?
Yeah, well, I guess just like, I've talked to a lot of musicians that have said like straight up, I just didn't have it in me. I didn't have creativity. I didn't feel like writing songs. Like, was it different for you guys, or was it the same? Or
like, okay, the way I am, and I think we are, is we're very, because we do everything in the band, we're very compartmentalized. So like we were straight up like, we are booking X time off to write this thing, and when we do it, we can get into the zone. And I actually like kind of found it easier in a way, because I didn't have to do all this stuff. Like there was no radio tracking, there's no show booking. Like I could actually for once just focus on the art, which is like my dream. So I don't.
But it's up and down within and out of that context. So I think like through the year, let's say, there could be times where either of us or both of us are feeling creative or totally absent of ideas. And then there might be some times where you just like things open up and you have an inspiration. But then, in those times where we'll set aside, like we're going to go out of town for a week and we're just going to write as much as we can. Even within that, there's definitely stretches of writer's block.
Sure.
And like Wait For It on this album is an example where where I remember we were like, during the day we had agreed, okay, I'm going to work on these other demos, you're going to try to write something, and then for a lot of that day you were really frustrated and you felt like total writer's block, and you were like, how am I ever going to write a song again in my life? I'm horrible at this. And then and then and then an hour later you had some inspiration, and then you followed, and then an hour later you had a full song that came out of nowhere. So
I'm just saying, we weren't like, oh my god, the pandemic has drained us of all creativity. I don't think so, because we are very business minded with it. We were like, we have this time, we're gonna do this with it, like.
But we also have the benefit of being a songwriting partnership, like a team.
Yes,
I think if like, speaking for myself, if I was just in a band by myself, through the pandemic or through the rest of my life, I would probably suffer that a lot more. Like, I think it would be harder to find, but we have the benefit of being able to like lift each other up when we're feeling down or unmotivated or something.
But like I think the only dark place in the pandemic for me was like nearing the end, where our only source of validation came from the internet, instead of like being able to perform our songs live or even release it. We didn't even want to release any of the songs, so we just couldn't tour behind them. And we were like, you forget why you're in a band, because you're like, am I in a band to make TikToks, or like what's happening?
And you're in studio with a couple of the guys from Our Lady Peace, is that right? Did I read that right, Jason?
And you did. Yeah. They recorded drums and bass on the whole album.
That's amazing. So what do you take away from working with guys like that? Like from that session, what will you take away and use in the future?
I think I'll answer just because I was there, because Vanessa was not present for the session, but just being there, I've always, through whoever we've worked with in the past, like producers, I've always been trying to take in as much as I can and learn as much about the production process. But I think and then also the two of us, like, very common among creative people is imposter syndrome. And so it's easy to, even if you have the skills, or just because maybe you're not as experienced as someone like that, doesn't mean that you don't belong in the studio, but it's often easy to feel like that's the case maybe. And so it was pretty cool to watch the two of them, because they've been playing together for so many years and they're such an incredible unit together.
Crushing
but I found it
players,
quite unbelievable. And I found it cool to watch. Like, we would write the songs and then fill out demos with rough bass and drums and then send it to them, and then they would write parts to replace them. So being in the studio, watching them work, like watching what they would come in with and watching them execute those ideas that they were planning, was really fascinating. But it was also cool watching how the two of them operated kind of differently. Like, Jason is very much like, I know exactly what I'm going to do, and he's just he's like a robot, but in a good way, like the human version, where he's just like, I know exactly what I'm going to do, and I'm just going to do it perfectly because I'm that good. And then if you want me to try something different, for sure I will, but I don't have to. And then Duncan comes in planning to do something, but he's also very much like about feeling things out and very improvisational. And he's also not afraid to take a chance or to make a mistake. And so it was really interesting seeing, I learned a lot just watching both of them, like watching those two different approaches and seeing how there's not just one way to be a professional musician. Everyone can go at it their own way, and everyone can bring something different. And so it was just such an honor. It was an honor to like watch them work. And it's such an honor for them to have laid the foundation for this album.
Yeah, that's incredible. What a cool experience, right? Yeah. I read that. I was like, man, that's awesome. I'm curious, like, so what was the music in each of your houses as kids growing up? Like, and how influential was that for you to be on the path you're on right now?
Okay, I don't think anyone's ever asked me that. And guys, like, I don't think there was music. Like, I don't think. No, I'm like, honestly, like, I do not have a single childhood memory where there was like music playing. Like, what? Like,
your parents just weren't into music.
I don't think so.
Wow.
Were yours?
My parents, but they're very old school. Like, they would be listening to like the golden oldies or like Elvis or like my mom, obviously big Celine Dion fan. And then a lot of like show tunes, like they're big into musicals.
Oh, wow.
So like all the Andrew Lloyd Webber.
That makes so much sense.
I guess so.
Oh my God, he often writes songs and I'm like, yeah, that would be cool if it was in a musical. Like, we're not writing that.
I guess so.
David.
That's a good point. Yeah, so I wasn't really into music as a kid. My big sister was really into U2, and so I think that inspired me to get into U2. So they were probably my first big like love of a band. But yeah, I think neither of us really got into music until later in life. Like I think the average story of like how a band started or something is like young kids in high school buy some crappy guitars and whatever. But yeah, like I think we both came into actually the concept of making music much later in life.
I mean, I actually no, I'm not going to tell that story, but I loved music. Like
you're big into pop. Like you were much more.
When I was like a kid, I had like membership cards to radio stations like 1050 Chum. I still remember all oldies all the time. Like I would call in and request songs like
for the oldies.
Like I used to I won like every radio contest. Like I went to free movies every week because like I was really into radio, which fuck the irony. Oh my God, I'm now getting really upset. I supported radio like my entire life. This is what I'm actually like, wow. You know what? In one of those boxes over there, my memory boxes, I bet you I have like AM 640 card. Okay. A lot's gonna go down after this. I'll tell you that right now. Anyways.
Cool. What was
did that answer your question?
Yeah. What was your first concerts?
NSYNC. I was front row. I got a piece of Joey's towel. I was like in high school, I was like a pop queen, like Britney, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, like Spice Girls. That was like the whole vibe.
Mm-hmm. I think the first real concert that I went to was Cake.
What?
Cake?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's so random, isn't it?
They were great.
I mean, I really like that. I really liked Cake.
Yeah.
What happened?
I think actually the first. I think the real answer is
still around.
That's kind of. I think my parents, when I was like really little, my parents took me to see Billy Joel.
Cute.
So I feel like that's the first probably like real concert of my life.
Billy Joel would be amazing to see even today.
I would really. He's got an endless repertoire.
Yeah, amazing. And Cake, here's a band that like, is there another band that sounds like Cake? The answer is no.
No.
They're weird in a way that's like now I feel like a lot of bands are like trying really hard to be weird. Like, do you know what I mean? Like you're trying, like Cake like was not trying to do anything. Like they're just really weird.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Cake. Great show.
Great show.
Yeah.
Great dessert.
I wanted to bring something great dessert as well. Yeah. I wanted to bring up something on your bio that I don't know why it got me down this train of thought, but it said something to the effect that you were inspired by Florence and the Machine and Muse, Metric, Foo Fighters, and I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about Foo Fighters, specifically Taylor Hawkins.
Sure.
Where
were you when you learned that Taylor had died?
We were together because I told you, didn't I? Didn't I see it on social media and I was like, I feel like we were here.
I can't remember.
I can't
remember exactly, but I definitely remember learning of it and being in disbelief as everyone else was.
Yeah. No, I know. First time I saw it, I was like, this can't be right. Like, there's no way. And then, of course, I start digging around like, holy fuck, it's right. My God.
Yeah.
I immediately went on like a very deep dive, like, because that's what I do. Like, I like immediately was like, what's going on? Like, do you know what I mean? I was like doing real like National Enquirer type shit.
Totally.
Because
right,
I was like, you want a reason, right? You're like, wait, what? Like, why? Like, something must be like amiss.
Yeah. And did you watch any of that Foo Fighters tribute concert they did at where was it? Wembley Stadium? It had like,
Miley.
I've seen
like them Crooked Vultures, and the guy from AC/DC did some stuff with like Metallica's drummer, and like Liam Gallagher came out, and Taylor's kid came out.
Yes, I saw some of the clips with Justin from the Darkness. I saw some of those.
Yeah,
I wasn't able to watch the whole thing because I was at a wedding, but
I watched the one with this kid and I immediately started crying.
Yeah,
I was like, I can't watch anymore.
How can you not cry when you watch that, right? Like
you couldn't. Like that's why I wasn't like I was like I'm not ready to cry for a full hour. Right?
Straight up, like you are heartless. You're not crying, right? You are heartless.
There's a I think shortly after that, Rolling Stone published, I think their podcast, they published audio of an interview that they had just done with him a year or two before, and it was really fascinating. It was interesting because after he died, a friend of mine had sent me, there was the article that resulted from that interview, and it was interesting because reading through it, I learned all this stuff about him because I'd always thought like the story was always like he and Dave are best buds, and like you just get that image as like that they just are having the time of their life all the time. And this is just a band of best buds. But in this interview, I had no clue the kind of anxiety that Taylor had just in general. Like he had extreme stage fright. And then I think that was leading to a lot of like the way that he was pushing himself physically, and also some medications that he was on. But it's crazy to learn that an artist of that skill level could have stage fright.
You're blowing my mind. Like what? The guy did 2 hours a night, man.
Yeah.
We have to go on
that's it.
That's the thing. We started going down the steep. Well, I started going down the steep dive, and then you found that, and I was like, oh my God. And then like,
yeah, you should check out that episode because it made me look at him in a totally different way. Like not a bad way, but just I would never have guessed. And the amount of pressure that he put on himself. I mean, we can, not at that scale, obviously, but like we can definitely relate to, and I think so many artists can relate to the feeling of the pressure that you put on yourself, that you are interpreting the rest of the world putting on you. And it seems, I mean, I don't know what's come from in terms of like cause of death or something like that, but like just knowing the extremity of anxiety that he felt around performance and his role, it's just so sad, and there's so many artists like that, unfortunately.
Yeah, big time, right? I mean, you start to really get into it, and like same for like Chris Cornell. Like you think like he's like a rock god, and you think he has a perfect life. He's got kids, he's got a wife, he's touring band, of course, millionaire and everything else.
But like I never think that about public figures anymore, because really, like,
well, you just never know.
Well, you never know, but like you almost, I mean, I would say like I probably would way more likely err on the side of like they are dealing with a lot of shit than like, oh, their life is perfect and happy. Like like let's just look at music history, every biography, every whatever, like think about it. It's like there is a reason that like musicians and actors and public figures like are more likely than not to develop addictions of some sort, whether it be like an eating disorder, whether it's drugs, where it's alcohol. Like it's like that life is not tenable. Like your entire worth is based on external validation. As much as you try for it not to be, the only reason you're ever successful is because of something we call fans. Like think about how fucked up the term fans is. You have fans, you have people who are like admiring you and worshiping you and watching your every move. And if you play it wrong, you're like, I mean, we're not even remotely famous, but when I lose like one Instagram follower, I'm like, was that a bot or a real person? Like, is it something I said? Like, I mean, it's, and like, as much as like, we're trying to do so much work constantly, we as a collective on like self-love and don't care what people think. Okay, well, if you don't care what people think, you're in the wrong industry, because like, except for a very small percentage of artists who are like, maybe like the Polaris artists who don't care what people think and are just making whatever the fuck they want. And I bet you that's not even true either. If you're a commercial artist, your literal job, the only reason you're going to be successful is if other people like you. So like that is a recipe for absolute disaster. There's no way you're okay.
Well, that's pretty fatalistic.
No, but it's true though, right? Like even, you know, what, and I agree with you. Like when I lose followers, I'm like, what the fuck did I do? Like, I just had on like really good guests, you know, I'm trying my best. I've got these great shows happening. Like, how am I losing followers? It blows my mind, man. It really does.
Also, the word follower or the word fan is like so insane. Like, well, the world is a cult. Okay, like what is going on? I
can't. Could you pick a career highlight, or is that just like way too hard?
No, I could easily pick one right now.
Oh, yeah?
I mean, we opened for Bon Jovi. That's like the career highlight. Mm-hmm. So far. So far.
At for what at the time was Air Canada Centre, but now Scotiabank Arena in Toronto.
Yeah.
So we played a 16,000 seat arena opening for our good friend John,
and who gave us a pep talk before the show.
Shut up! So he did not come. Yes, he. A pep talk.
Of course he did. He gave us a pep talk. He was like, "Do you know why?" He was like, "Do you know why your set is only 20 minutes?" And we were like, "Why, John?" And he's like, "Because when I got my big break opening for ZZ Top, our set was 30 minutes. We were so nervous. We played it so fast that it only ended up being 20 minutes." And I was like, "Oh my God, that's so great." And then he was like, "Don't be nervous, just go out there." And then Phil X was like, "This is just another field for you to frolic in." And then like, I mean, yeah.
Oh my God. So, and then like afterwards, are you hanging out and drinking beers and drinking wine and just.
They needed us to leave immediately.
They were like, "Get out." They were like, 20 minutes, your set's over. Get your stuff out of here now. Literally, they were like,
"You want to stick around? Tickets are right over there."
Yeah, they gave us tickets up in the nosebleeds. Yeah, but it was awesome. We did get to hit craft services in the afternoon for dinner.
Oh my God, it was insane. They set up a full restaurant in the Scotiabank Arena with like any food you could want. Basically, there's like a smoothie station. Like it was like wild.
That's probably the most diva moment I had, which is that because I try to eat at least 3 hours prior to a show so that I'm not like burping up my dinner while I'm running around on stage. So they're really nice to the opening band, and it was really cool. The whole crew, like the entire experience. They do this, and I think they still do. They do this.
Have 3 minutes.
Okay. They do this in every city that they go to. They get a local band to open for them.
Did you know that?
No.
Bon Jovi, because he's like, "I'm famous. I don't need an opener to sell tickets." They break a local act in every city they go to. They get a local band to open. He's been doing it for years.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And they don't treat you. I mean, they want you to get out of there right after, but I mean, they've probably got a lot of liabilities to figure out. So, but they don't treat you like you're some like bums. Like they were really nice to us, and like we got a dressing room and a full, so we got to like really have the experience. But so they had a pretty strict schedule. So they're like, okay, from like this time to this time, like an hour before your show, you guys can go eat dinner. So then we had to get our friend who we had hired to be our tour manager for the night to like ask their contact if they could make an exception so that I could go a few hours earlier to eat with the crew. So that's like the most diva moment that I've had.
That is definitely not the most diva moment.
I mean, okay, well,
anyway.
Oh, look at the time. We don't have time.
By the way, we have to take a selfie before this ends. Our last interviewer just hung up on her.
No.
Okay, well,
not in a mean way. She was just like, "Bye." You know.
Well, no, she knew that we had to go to another interview.
You do a fake goodbye. You're like, "Trying to keep Goodnight Sunrise," and then we're like, you know what I mean? Right. Then we take the picture, but she like really like just popped off.
Right. Okay. Yes. Okay. Well, yeah, we do unfortunately have another interview in a couple minutes.
Yeah.
But
I was going to wrap it up.
Yeah, we can wrap this up. In fact,
I was going to say thank you so much for because I know I only had 20, so I'm like way past what I was given.
Talking to you. I would keep talking to you if we didn't have to go.
Yeah, we can do a round 2 if you like.
Round 2 sounds great. So you're easy to find online. Speaking of social media and all that stuff, and fans and followers and everything else. GNSR Band on Twitter, Goodnight Sunrise Band on Instagram, and just a simple search of course, your band name on Facebook will find you.
And Goodnight Sunrise on TikTok. Let's not forget.
TikTok as well.
Yeah.
Snapchat, soon OnlyFans is coming.
No.
Well, yeah, you look, hey, I mean, if we...
You can find David on Tinder.
If we can't...
Swipe right.
Yeah.
Swipe right.
Hey, I mean, if we keep having this much difficulty cracking into radio, we're just gonna have to expand all of our horizons. So
head down, keep grinding. Love your
stuff. Swipe right on Goodnight Sunrise.
Thank you.
No, truthfully, thank you very much for the kind words about the album. We definitely appreciate it. And we like work so hard, and it for all the talk about feeling pressure about of having to do something or be something or set or whatever. Like, we definitely made the album that we wanted to make, and we didn't take in we recorded what we wanted to and what we thought would sound good to us and what we enjoyed. So we're glad to hear that it hits you in the right way.
Odds. A very fitting title in the time of COVID and the pandemic. So
absolutely.
I will throw this around a ton. I'll make sure a lot of people listen to this podcast, and I guess we'll see you online. Thanks again for jumping on.
Sounds good. Thank you, Todd.